Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We just now concluded the Siddhi, which were due to Bhuta Jaya. So Bhuta Jaya means conquering the elements, Panchamahabhutas, Panchatattvas, and by conquest of elements, what results is Ashtamaha Siddhi. Therefore, Patanjali in his sutra mentioned the Ashtamaha Siddhis being attained. So sutra was Tato Animadi Pradurbhavaha. Pradurbhava, appearance. Appearance of what? The Animadi Siddhis. Why? Tataha, because of Bhuta Jaya. And apart from the Animadi Siddhis, Anima Adi, so we have seen the whole list and we have considered each of the Siddhis, nature of each of the Siddhis. Anima, Mahima, Laghima, then Prapti, Prakamya, Ishitrutva, and Yatra Kama Vasitva. So these are the Ashtamaha Siddhis, and we had a brief introduction to that. Then, apart from that, Kaya Sampada. The Kaya Sampada, the body is proof against so many natural problems, nature-inflicted problems, and it is proof against such problems, while our bodies are not proof. And proof in the sense what? Tad dharman na abhighata. So they do not inflict any trouble, problems, limitations. And then Kaya Sampada also of the nature of Rupa, Lavanya, Balavajra, Sammananatva, and that is Kaya Sampada. So we understood the purport of the sutra and the bhashya. After having mentioned Bhuta Jaya, the next is Indriya Jaya. Indriya means all constituents of human embodiment. Indriya Sanghata gives us our manifestation. The entire embodiment is full of indriyas. No part of the embodiment is without being in indriya. So these indriyas, of which one is aware of karmendriya, jnanendriya, manasendriya, antakaranendriya. Additionally, we have to also understand sharirendriya, because they are all indriyas. The entire systemic body, which comprises of systems, of which one is aware in the modern world: the anatomical system, skeletal-muscular system, digestive system, glandular system, endocrine system, circulatory system, nervous system, excretory system, generative system. So they are referred to as systems in modern science, whereas in fact they are indriyas. They are indriyas, and we have seen the concept indriya, the term indriya, what it means, while we are dealing with pratyahara at the end of the second chapter. So So Gnanendriya, Karmendriya, Sharirendriya, Antarendriya, all these are indriyas. Not only Gnanendriyas, but even Karmendriyas, not only Gnana Karmendriyas, but also Sharirendriyas of various systems. So, in vernacular or in Ayurveda, they are referred to as Pachanendriya, Shvasanendriya, Abhisaranendriya, Jananendriya, Visargendriya. So these are all body of indriyas and not just organs. Indriya, I don't have to repeat the concept. So all these indriyas which are embodiment wide, they are subsuming the embodiment. No part of the embodiment is without an indriya. We don't have part of our body which is non-indriyatmaka. No part of the body is non-indriyatmaka, that is non-indriyic. We are collocation of indriyas. So many kinds of indriyas are there. So that's the indriya concept. And now the siddhi is about indriya jaya. It is not just conquering cognitive organs or cognitive organs as is popularly thought, or maybe Manasendriya conquered. It is not just that, but there is also conquest of the entire collocation of indriyas which form the human embodiment or any embodiment of a living being. So indriya jaya. Now, how does this happen? This comes about by samyama on the 5 forms of indriyas. We saw the 5 forms of elements: sthula, swarupa, sukshma, anvaya, arthavatva. So similarly, here there are 5 forms. Now they are described as Grahana, Swarupa, Asmita, Anvaya, Arthavatva. And tat sanyama therein, the sanyama there results into indriya jaya. And let me tell you in advance, by this indriya jaya, what happens? It is not only conquering the indriyas, but it consequently also becomes pradhana jaya. So consequentially, it is pradhana jaya, manojayatvam, and something that is called vikarana bhava. Very interesting siddhis. So indriya jaya means the factors are there. If you open out the factors of indriya jaya, it includes pradhana jaya, that is conquering the primeval matter. Manojavitvam, that is one gets the velocity of mind. Velocity of mind is absolute. The greatest velocity that we know about is velocity of light, and that falls behind significantly with if you consider with velocity of the mind. So enormous, it is absolute. Velocity of the mind is absolute. So yogi gets the velocity of mind. And then vikarana bhava, which is also interesting kind of siddhi, that he can send the senses separately. See, if your eyes have to go to a destination or a location which is say 100 kilometers away from you will have to take your own body. If you want to take your auditory organ 100 kilometers, you will have to take entire body. You will have to mobilize the whole thing for the gustatory organ to go, eye organ to go, ear organ to go, olfactory organ to go, tactile organ to go. So we will have to go mobilize the entire embodiment if we want these 5 kinds of perceptions. But here, vikarana bhava, that means the senses are separated and one can send the senses. Interesting, if you want to understand this siddhi in a lighter way, you can send your vision somewhere, ear somewhere else, gustatory organ somewhere else, olfactory organ somewhere else. Whereas this is not possible. Wherever you go, they all come with you. Even if you don't need them, they come with you. Because we cannot separate them, we cannot unplug them and send them. But vikarana bhava is such a siddhi, vikaranam. Anyway, we will go into it when we come to that point. The point is we are coming to this samyama or indriya rupa panchakam. Indriya, all the indriyas also have forms, and there are 5 forms. Just as elements have 5 forms, Prithivya, Tej, Vayu, Akash have 5 forms, all the indriyas have 5 forms. Now it should be understood that the creation is either bhautika srushti or indriyatmaka srushti, as the metaphysics has told us in the 2nd chapter. Bhutendriyatmakata. The prakriti is bhutendriyatmakam. So bhutendriyatmakata is the nature of the srushti. So also from the point of view of phenomenalism, we can say there is a physical part of creation and indriya part of creation. So something is also therefore classified as, the universe is classified as sentient, insentient, living, non-living, jada chetana srushti. So we know that inert, insentient, non-living part of creation doesn't have senses, and the entire living part of creation has senses. So that's why living creation is considered as indriyatmaka, and the non-living creation is considered as bhutatmaka, or that is jada srushti. So this is the information we have, very fundamental and basic information. Now when it comes to indriyas, we have again that minimum information about it, that there are jnanendriyas, karmendriyas and antarendriyas. That is cognitive organs, what we call in modern science, in modern language parlance, motor organs, cognitive organs, and then mental organs, internal organs, antarendriya, abhyantarendriya. So we only know 3 classes of indriyas: jnanendriya, karmendriya and antarendriya. Then we know that jnanendriyas are 5 and karmendriyas are 5, and then antarendriyas are 3 or 4. So 5 plus 5 plus 4, 14, or 5 plus 5 plus 3, 13. This is how they are counted. Point is that we think there are 3 classes of indriyas. And it should be admitted that the major reference to is these indriyas, Chaturdasha indriyas or Trayodasha indriyas or Ekadasha indriyas, as Bhagavad Gita puts it. Mind is considered as one organ, although it has subsets. Mind is considered to be one internal organ. So Bhagavad Gita speaks about Ekadasha indriyas. But little depth in our approach will tell us that even all the indriyas of our anatomy, Sharirendriyas also have 5 forms. Now why do they need 5 forms? Why all these indriyas need 5 forms? Because basically these indriyas are either for bhogarthata or apavargarthata according to teleology, with which we are now familiar. In the second chapter we dealt with the topic of teleology. Bhoga apavargartham drushyam. Prakriti is bhogartha and apavargartha. Now, in bhoga or bhogarthata, we don't need to identify the five forms, because that's the mundane plane of our dwelling. But in spiritual and adhyatmic path, we need to take recourse to other potentials of these indriyas, and those are those four forms which are mentioned apart from the one functional form with which we are all familiar. So we say that eyes are there for vision, ears are there for audition, etc., etc. Or liver is organ for digestion, because the colon is for excretion, etc., etc. So we know their functions in anatomy, exoteric anatomy. Each organ has some function. So that one function is enough for us to just carry out mundane worldly life and practicality of life. But in spiritual pursuit, the potential of the senses, which are greater, it is because of their other four forms. And therefore in yoga you can understand how it is important. So therefore there is an inquiry now about five forms of indriyas, and generally they are understood by our jnanendriyas. So that is just as an illustrative aspect where we will try to know what are the five forms. Then one has to deduce the five forms in karmendriyas and five forms in sharirendriyas as well, manasendriya as well, because these are two functions, either bhogarthata or apavargarthata. And for both to be accomplished, because they have the purpose to accomplish both. So what is the purpose of indriyas in spiritual process will become little revealed by the topic that we are discussing. Anyway, there are Rupa Panchaga. There are five forms, and by samyama on their five forms, because they are not objects for your empirical process to understand the five forms. Then what happens? Indriya jaya, and consequently there is manojavitvam, vikarana bhava, and pradhana jayascha, as expressed in Patanjali's Sutra. So we embark upon these five forms. We have to understand very basic introductory kind of understanding or grasping of the five forms. What are these five forms? Swarupa, Grahana, Swarupa, Asmita, Anvaya, Arthavatva. So these get mentioned in Patanjali's text. The five forms are mentioned, and therefore the sutra says Grahana, Swarupa, Asmita, Anvaya, Arthavatva, Samyamat, Indriya Jayaha. So just as the Bhuta Panchaka had five forms, such as Sthula, Swarupa, Sukshma, Anvaya, Arthavatva, now here it is Grahana, Swarupa, Asmita, Anvaya, Arthavatva. So you can identify the commonality here. Anvayatva and Arthavatva are in both five forms. That is, five forms of bhutas and five forms of indriyas. So Anvaya and Arthavatva are common. So anyway, the first form is Grahana form. That is the first form, Prathama Rupam. and that is the Rupam by which most of us use the embodiment and try to facilitate them to function in their own realm of materialism and worldliness. Now, as I said, we are going to understand this topic by primarily focusing on Grahana. So when you understand something of the 5 forms in Grahana, you can extrapolate those in the Karmendriyas and Antarendriyas and other Indriyas. So for us to grasp the purport of the sutra, we are going to understand with reference to Grahana, which are for Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha, which are Shrotrendriya, Dhriyendriya, Rasanendriya, Sparshendriya, and Grahana. So these are 5 sense organs for Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha Vishayas. And when they work for these 5 objects, when the senses are working for their own 5 objects, so now you can understand what is the object of each of these 5 organs, or 5 senses, or 5 Jnanendriyas precisely. That is called Grahana Rupam. So in the previous topic of Bhutendriya, Bhuta Rupam or Bhuta Rupa Panchakam, we considered something as Samanya Vishesha Rupam. So they are the dharma of Panchamahabhutas. And similarly, they are here for Indriyas, their Swarupa. So there too, the Swarupa was describing substantive form, and where we discussed, as the metaphysics discusses about Samanya Vishesha Dharma. Similarly here, the second form is described. So in Indriya, Grahana Rupa means their functional form. Eyes see, ears hear, nose smells, tongue tastes, skin feels. So we know these functional forms. That's why they are called as visual organ, auditory organ, gustatory organ, tactile organ, and personality, the 5 organs. So that is called Grahana Rupam, functional form. What do they grasp? They grasp Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So they get the knowledge about Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Alochanatmaka Vyapara. So eyes are there for you to give visual perception and cognition. Ears are there for you to give the auditory perception and cognition. So the 5 senses, Jnanendriyas, have such 5 functions, and that is called Grahana Rupa. And in Grahana Rupa, they grasp the Grahya. The Grahya are Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha Vishayas, and Alochanatmak Vyapara is their Grahana Rupam. So by such perceptions and cognitions, there is a vritti created, and that vritti is called Grahana Vritti. And in Vyasa Bhashya, it gets defined little forensically. The Indrika Vritti in Samanya Rupam, in generic forms, only perceives, cognizes, grasps their objects. So it doesn't take their forms, it only depicts, receives their forms. So that it does just Grahanam. Now, it doesn't just grasp the object, but it also grasps the specifics of Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash. Prithvi, Murtatvam, Kathinya, Sakaratva, which was discussed earlier. So that also is grasped. But then there are many things which are not grasped about the objects. So there is always a part of the object grasped and a part of the object not grasped. This is what happens in perception cognition. In simple way it can be explained that if you are looking at the flower, you don't see the other side of the flower. If you are looking at a coin, if you are looking at the head of the coin, the tail of the coin is not visible. If you look at the tail of the coin, the head is not visible. So there is always something known and something unknown in case of our empirical perception. Despite that, we claim by sighting an object, we say, I know it. But little analysis will tell you, when you look at the top of the object, you don't sight the bottom. If you sight the bottom of the object, you don't sight the top. If you sight the anterior of the object, you don't sight posterior. If you sight the right of the side of the object, you don't sight the left side of the object. So there is always a combination of adhyavasaya and anuvyavasaya. Combination of knowing and not knowing. So knowing plus non-knowing is empirical knowing. And this is one factor. But then there are so many aspects which are ungraspable to senses. They remain beyond the senses. They remain agochara. Like microscopic things in that object are not sighted. So many things are beyond sensory grasp, even in case of sensory objects. Sensory objects are not completely graspable, and many parts of them are not graspable because of what I mentioned just now. If you see anterior, posterior is not seen, top is seen, bottom is not seen, etc. Besides that, the grosser form is seen and subtler form is not seen. So they don't grasp many things. So try to understand when you are sighting a visual object, what is it that you have grasped and what is it that you have not grasped? Because certain things are beyond the sensory capacity or capacity of the senses to grasp. And that's why we start using microscopes and electron microscopes and telescopes and whatnot. So there is always gocharatvam and agocharatvam. So whatever is gochara, whatever is visible, from that perception and cognition, we try to have nishchayatmaka buddhi, nirnayaka buddhi. We decide what it is and what to do with it based on partial grasp. So once you have accounted for ungraspable proportion, then you will know how we falter in our worldly life to decide or make decisions, take decisions about this is this and this should be done with this. Although many parts of it are not grasped. Without grasping the whole, we start developing this buddhi, what is called as nishchayatmaka buddhi, nirnayatmaka buddhi or vyavasayatmaka buddhi. Say for instance, looking at a person with whatever distance, from whatever distance, you can't identify whether the person is Durjana or Sajjana. Although you can see him apadatalamasthaka, you can see from his foot part to crown of the head part, complete person appearing to your perception, yet you can't figure out whether the person is a good person or a bad person, wicked person or a vicious, virtuous person, noble person or ignoble person. But yet we are judgmental. So many times we say vision at first sight. You look at the person and decide person is good or not good, bad or not bad, or good or bad, and we start labeling the person. This is what happens in our mundane and worldly life, that we stamp a person by just looking at the person. And many times it is okay and many times not okay. Anyway, the point is this Grahana has a limited range of operation. The diameter is limited. It will grasp a part of it while the other part is not grasped. There are so many things which are beyond the grasp of the senses. But yet we decide on right or wrong, what is what and what is what not, etc. So sometimes it is okay and sometimes it is not okay. And that's the human limitation anyway. So point is, the Grahana Rupa means Shabda, Sparsha, etc. forms of the object. And along with this perception of Shabda, Sparshadi, we have some Bodha, Pratibodha as well. We have certain reactions, we have certain judgments, we have certain ideas coming out of it. We don't just cite the objects, but we have some ideas floated in our mind. And that's, everything is counted in Grahana. Not only perception, but whatever is the fallout of perception and cognition is also counted in Grahana. And well, for the people of our times who are often predicated as Navya Vidya Vibhushita, that means we are all well educated in new knowledge realms, well educated in academies such as schools and colleges and universities. For them, the Grahana form means functional and operative form. The functional form and operative form is the Grahana Rupa. In simple words, eyes seeing, ears hearing, tongue tasting, nose smelling, tactile organ, the skin, getting the tactile perception, and not only those perceptions but the fallout of those, samvedana, sabvedanat uttara kriya. We react to such perception cognitions, which is totally founded on perception and cognition. We do certain activities. So there are kriya, pratikriya, nirnaya, pavitra, nishchaya, etc. That means it is immediately followed by certain things. Ideation, thought process, analysis, decisions, stances. So many things, they happen as fallout. So that all is to be counted in Grahana Rupam mentioned here. So there is samvedana, we have reactions because of perceptions, actions, reactions, responses, etc. So they are all counted in Grahana form. And the perceptive act is only one of the aspects of it. This should be understood by students here. Because we don't take decisions, or we don't have any convictions, or we don't try to have judgments, etc. without samvedana, without sensations. And so all these things do come in, whereby we finally act and react to our sensory perceptions and inputs. And because of this, the whole mundane activity gets the base by way of apahar, bhrashtachar, etc., etc. So we do so many things which are untoward things. Sometimes we do virtues, and sometimes more often we do vices because of the Grahana Rupam. So they can stimulate both right activity and wrong activity, and we can ascertain how often the wrong activities are triggered rather than right activities, wrong responses rather than right responses, wrong thought process rather than right thought process. So somewhere we can apportion how much goes for the negative fallout and how much goes for positive fallout. But that is all the Grahana Rupam. And that is why we say we are given 5 organs which are cognitive organs, and all our knowledge depends upon these 5 cognitive organs. But with the materialism rampant, more often they are engaged in nonsense. So while dealing with pratyahar on an earlier occasion, we had come to realize that most of the nonsense is in the senses, and yet they are called senses. Anyway, so the functional form is a form in which they work, or the function that they carry out in worldliness. Why the archetypal plan has given them to us and why we are using, there is ocean of difference. This is a thing to be pondered over. They are called Jnanendriyas, we make them Bhogendriyas. They are cognitive organs, they are given for us to become wise, and we start behaving unwisely, unscrupulously because of the senses. So the corruption is primarily because of the functional form of the senses, and this will be revealed by little analysis about it as to what it does. And as said earlier, they become Bhogendriyas while they are Jnanendriyas. We employ them to become Bhogendriyas while they are given to us as Jnanendriyas. We make them Papendriyas. All vices are committed primarily because of the senses. That's why it is Bhrashtachar. That is why it is corruption. Most of our corruption is around the senses. Anyway, so then one understands how they need reformation in spiritual path. So when they are reformed, they start functioning in some other ways as well, and those some other ways are other 4 forms. The point is, we can now get onto horizon that there is not only one form as we understand in our worldly affairs, but there are also other 4 forms which now you can deduce. So those organs have much more functions beyond Vishaya Grahana form, that is perceiving their objects. Beyond and besides perceiving their object, they have some other functions as well. See, the eyes are not merely seeing instruments. It is interesting to watch somebody's eyes. They are objects of vision as well. They are objects of vision for someone else. Because eyes are marvelous actors. They have such expressions, like expressions of a dancer, expressions of a proficient actor, a character actor who plays character roles, Navarasa as described in Sahitya Shastra. Eyes even speak. Eyes can speak. Eyes can assure. They can give you assurance. Eyes can deceive. Eyes can make you read emotions. So, eyes can worry. Eyes can be thinking. Because when a person is profound thinking, you can get some idea of his involvement in thinking by looking at the eyes. Eyes are thoughtful. Eyes are worrying. Somebody is worried. The person is worried in mind, but you can find out, ascertain that from the eyes. So that means eyes worry as well, and that's why the worry becomes visible. You can't read the mind of a person, so you don't read the worry of the mind that is in the mind, but you can certainly read the worry which appears in the eyes. So eyes do so many functions. Eyes give memory. If you want to badly remember something and you don't remember, you tightly clinch your eyes to closed condition, and that triggers memory. So eyes have enormous role even in worldly plane which goes unidentified. Maya, mamata, prem, jivvala, vachana, abhivachana. Eyes can give you trust. Eyes can give you assurance. Eyes can give you bounty. Eyes can curse you. You will be cursed by the very manifestation of the eyes of that person. So eyes are marvelous organs. They don't only have visions, but they themselves become marvelous visual objects for someone to read your mind. Anyway, so those are in a way extracurricular activities of the senses, and there are many such activities. Anyway, now we'll proceed to the other form of the senses, which is called Swarupam, substantive form. But we will take that up in our next session. Enough for the time being. Namaskar.